U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called for greater quantities of aid to get into northern Gaza in particular. And these sentiments were echoed by the British Foreign Secretary David Cameron as the pair held a joint press conference just a short time ago in Washington, D.C.
We're looking at a number of critical things that need to happen in the coming days, including opening a new northern point of entry for assistance into Gaza, using Ashdod on a regular basis, maximizing the flow of assistance from Jordan, as well as putting in place a much more effective deconfliction mechanism with the humanitarian groups that are providing assistance. Just yesterday, more than 400 trucks were cleared to go into Gaza, and that is the most since October 7th in any given day. But what matters is results and sustained results, and this is what we will be looking at very carefully in the days ahead.
We want to see 500 trucks a day. We want to see the water switch back on. We want to see Ashdod and a northern crossing point opened. And crucially, we want to see this deconfliction, because getting aid to Gaza on its own isn't enough. You've got to be able to get aid around Gaza. And as we saw with the tragic killing of the World Central Kitchen workers, unless you have that deconfliction, other things like that could happen.
We have Mike Hanna joining us now from Washington, D.C. So, Mike, the two men speaking in Washington just a short time ago, obviously there was a lot of focus on the war on Gaza. What was the takeaway message from that press conference when it came to Gaza and Israel?
Well, the primary message was that both the Secretary of State and the Foreign Secretary are in complete accordance on the situation in Gaza. They are both arguing for more humanitarian aid to go in. They both expressed the hope that Israel will meet its commitments to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. They also agree, though, that Hamas is a stumbling block to getting a negotiated ceasefire or pause in the ongoing conflict, ignoring Israeli intransigence in the matter. And on the issue of arms to Israel, once again, complete agreement, both the U.S. Secretary of State and the British Foreign Secretary saying that arms will continue to Israel despite concern among many, particularly here in the United States, about the way in which these weapons are used. So certainly complete agreement between the two politicians at this news conference.
And the Secretary of State made some interesting comments when it came to the Rafah operation, because we heard earlier today the Prime Minister of Israel saying that he has a date for the Rafah invasion, but the Secretary of State saying that the U.S. That date hasn't been communicated to them. How are we to understand that?
Well, it is a slightly complicated situation, because in past days, the Secretary of State said that Israel had been asked to communicate with the U.S. about any potential operation in Rafah, and even to go so far as to discuss how it was going to preserve civilian life during such an operation. But now, from what the Secretary of State said, it appears that this is no longer the case, making very clear that Israel has not consulted the U.S. in any way on its operation in Gaza, even though, as you point out, the Israeli Prime Minister says it is going to go ahead. So there appears to have been a shift in impetus over here, where at one stage the U.S. was asking Israel to let it know about its operation in Rafah and also how it was going to carry it out. At this stage, it appears that the U.S. is not expecting anything from what the U.S. Secretary of State said from Israel with regards to any operation in Rafah.
All right, thank you. Mike Hanna, thanks for that update from Washington, D.C.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.